The FPL Gameweek 3 deadline is drawing near, so we need to make some final decisions. Coming up in today's video, we are going to be having a look at all of the press conference news. We're going to be rounding it up in two parts, looking at all of the relevant FPL information. Then we're going to be looking at some PALMER replacements. Yes, guys, PALMER is confirmed out, spoiler alert. So we do need to have a look at some of those players that could work pretty well as a replacement there. We've got a wildcard team for you guys if you are on a wildcard this week, or you just want to compare it to your own team. Same thing with the free hit team that we are going to be sharing with you today. What team I would be running if I was on a free hit in Game Week 3. And finally, we're going to be having a look at the best captains again for Game Week 3. So, loads to talk about. Let's get started. So let's round up the press conferences first of all. We're going to do this in alphabetical order. We're going to leave out a few teams where there wasn't really much interesting information, but we're going to start off with Arsenal, and Saka is going to be out for a few weeks, with Ødegaard and White both having a chance to feature in Game Week 3. So if you are an Ødegaard or White owner, you do still have a chance with these players, but there is a little bit of risk there. Saka, however, looks like he is going to be a sell. He is going to be out for Game Week 3 and most likely beyond the international break as well. Game Week 4, Game Week 5 are maybe risky for him. Maybe Game Week 6 is the earliest date we can say Saka will be back in the starting lineup for Arsenal for sure. Looking at Aston Villa, Konsa is back from suspension, but Kamara is going to miss 2 to 3 weeks with a hamstring injury. Cook for Bournemouth is no longer suspended, but he is still injured. Christie and Cliver are back and available. They were in the squad last game week, so we could see some more minutes for each of these players. Maybe that puts some other Bournemouth players at slight risk of rotation. Not Semenyo though, don't worry about that. Wissa for Brentford will miss out again in Game Week 3 whilst his future is sorted out. Still a couple of days left of the transfer window to figure out what is going on with Wissa before we can start talking about him as a serious FPL option again. And Henderson, Jordan Henderson, the new signing at Brentford, is available, and also he's in the England squad over the international break as well. Interesting stuff. For Brighton, they are unsure on the availability of Rutter. Unfortunately, we have just not got any kind of solid information on Jorginho Rutter. So yeah, not sure what's going to happen there. He's probably just going to be a sell at this point, particularly with this Game Week 3 fixture being against Man City. And Simas is likely to get more Premier League minutes soon. He is one of the new Brighton strikers. So I think definitely players like Welbeck, players like Rutter, maybe their minutes are damaged a little bit by the new Greek striker and the other new Greek striker, Kostoulas, maybe getting some more minutes betting in to the Brighton Premier League team. As for Chelsea, the big news of today is that Cole Palmer has been confirmed out for Game Week 3. He is going to miss out. He is not in the England squad either. Well, we're kind of unsure at this point whether he is going to be available for Game Week 4, but given that Game Week 4 is a couple of weeks away, I still do think he has a chance there. So it's kind of up to you at this point. Do you sell Palmer? I think for me personally, I think I am going to sell Palmer in my team. I'm pretty happy to do that, particularly if you're on free hit Game Week 6. I think Palmer is going to be a sell, and we will be looking at some replacements later on in the video. Elsewhere in Chelsea, Colwill, Badiashile and Lavia remain out as slightly longer term absentees. And as for Everton, Mikalenko is back and available, but there's still going to be no Branthwaite and no Patterson for Game Week 3. Moving on to Fulham, and Wilson is doubtful for Game Week 3, the 5.5 million midfielder. His injury is nothing serious, but he's going to miss out possibly for this game week, so not 100% sure. Most likely the bench is going to be your best scenario there. For Liverpool, Frimpong still going to be out. He is nearing closer to a return, but it's not going to come this side of the international break. But positive news on Bradley and McAllister. They are expected to be available and ready to go for this new game week. The Isak transfer, by the way, is looking more likely since Newcastle have signed a new striker, which could pave the way for Isak to move to Liverpool, which could potentially damage the likes of Ekatike and Gakpo moving forward. Just wanted to throw that one out there as something that maybe could happen. Of course, we're unsure how Liverpool would set up were they to sign Isak, but until that move is done, we can only really speculate at this point. For Man City, Ait-Nouri, good news there. He is available following his knock last week, so no need to sell Ait-Nouri anymore. You can play him against Brighton. Savinho will be back in game week 4, not this week, and there's been no update on Gvardiol, so presumably he is still going to be out for just a little bit longer. For Newcastle, Gordon picked up a 3-game suspension on Monday against Liverpool. Fabian Schär is available, maybe Tonali too, so positive news there. It looked like a few Newcastle players might be missing for this game, but actually Schär, Tonali, you know, it's maybe a little bit better than we thought. Joelinton, however, his injury looks a bit more serious and he is going to be out for a slightly longer period of time. Waldemar is the new signing for Newcastle, the new striker that they have signed for a pretty big fee, let's put it that way, but he's not going to be ready. He's not going to be registered ready for game week 3, so it's going to be more likely we might see him in game week 4, possibly a bench appearance for him, and maybe game week 5 onwards is where we might see Waldemar as a more regular starter for Newcastle if everything goes to plan. But pretty excited about this pick. I'm wondering how much he's going to cost in FPL. At time of recording, he hasn't got an FPL price tag, so we'll see what happens there. Isak still not being considered for selection whilst his future is being decided. As for Spurs next, Doggy is now available. Bissouma and Dragusin are still going to be out. If anyone jumped on Ballard or from Sunderland after his heroics in game week 1, he is going to be out for another 2 to 3 weeks. So he's going to be out for game week 3, most likely for game week 4 as well, with a possible return for game week 5 there. So definitely would not recommend buying him, we'll put it that way. And Strand Larsen of Wolves, pretty bad news here. He is a doubt with a small injury problem, apparently. He is still linked with Newcastle despite the Waldemar transfer, so just be aware of that one. There are some rumors, and this is not from an official source, but I feel like I need to say this, need to make you guys aware. There is some fairly strong rumors going around that Strand Larsen is not going to be playing this weekend. And maybe it's not entirely injury-based, and maybe more to do with him trying to work a little transfer away from Wolves over this summer. But that remains to be seen. Just wanted to throw that one out there, but at the very least, he is a doubt going into this game against Everton. So do be aware of that if you are a Strand Larsen owner. Doesn't necessarily make him a sell, but maybe make sure you do have a bench option available just in case Strand Larsen doesn't start. Alternatively, you could just sell him. It's kind of up to you at this point, but yeah, just something to be aware of. So let's talk about Cole Palmer. Are you going to sell him? Are you not going to sell him? I think I am. I think I am. We spoke about, you know, maybe he might be a good idea to sell him if you are on a free hit in game week 6. And particularly if you're maybe lacking a little bit on your bench, you feel you need a bit more bench cover, you can maybe downgrade Palmer to another midfielder and upgrade maybe one of your bench options to give yourself that extra bit of cover. But here are the replacements. Here are the players I've been kind of looking at, and I've kind of divided them into the top picks, the solid picks, and some of those slightly more risky picks there as well. I do prefer the players higher up on the list personally, but I don't want to completely rule out players towards the bottom at the end of the day. I just want to give you guys the information so you can make your own informed decision here. So we've got Semenyo at the top of this list. He's got some pretty good fixtures still. I don't think Spurs away is the best fixture for him, but the positional matchup there is actually not too bad, with Spurs conceding a few chances from the right side of their defense, aka the left side of the Bournemouth attack, where Semenyo likes to play. After that, we've got the likes of Brighton and Leeds coming up. So there are some nice fixtures in here. What's most important with Semenyo is that out of all of the midfielders in FPL so far this year, he is putting up the best underlying numbers. You can see here, guys, 7 shots, 4 big chances, and 1.92 XG in the opening 2 games. These are insanely good numbers, and he is backing them up with actual goals as well. In fact, no other player on this list is really even coming close to these kind of numbers. So Semenyo is your data pick, your underlying numbers pick there for sure. Next up, we've got Ismaila Sarr, and we've spoken a lot this week about how Sarr has this phenomenal record against Aston Villa. He's never failed to score or assist against them whenever he has started in a game against them. However, it should be said that despite scoring in last game week against Nottingham Forest, he does have the worst underlying numbers of all of the players that we are going to talk about today. So just 1 shot, just one key pass, not very much. He's not really shown very much so far this season, and he is coming off the back of playing obviously a lot of minutes in midweek for Crystal Palace's European qualification game. So just be aware of that. But it's a good matchup against Aston Villa, a very good matchup tactically as well. We've got Sunderland and West Ham after that as well. And he's one of those players, if you are thinking of free hitting in game week 6, then you get to skip out on Liverpool, that Liverpool fixture as well, who I think will improve defensively by the time they get to game week 6. Kudus is another top pick here as well. I think he is very secure for minutes, even with the new Spurs signing of Simmons. Xavi Simons, by the way, do not expect him to start in game week 3. But yeah, he's not really going to impact Kudus too much, in my opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of Spurs fans. The fixtures are really nice for Spurs. The one difficulty I have with Kudus potentially is that his goal threat is pretty low. He seems to look really good creatively, having 6 key passes so far, but his shooting numbers have been, you know, leaving a lot to be desired so far this season. Maybe that can change, maybe it won't. I guess that remains to be seen. But Semenyo, Sarr and Kudus, I think, are your sensible picks. There's nothing really wrong with them. They're all secure. They've got good fixtures going forward. They're good for minutes. Nothing really to worry about these players. Outside of that is where things get a little more questionable. So Harvey Barnes, for example, he is going to be starting every game until Anthony Gordon comes back in game week 6. So really, Barnes is only good for 3 game weeks before he will become rotation risk again. But in those 3 game weeks, he plays Leeds, Wolves and Bournemouth, which I think are 3 really nice fixtures. So could be a really nice short-term punt, but maybe a player you will have to remove later on. So that is one of the downsides of Barnes, which is why we drop him down a category compared to Semenyo, Sarr and Kudus. After that, we've got Bruno Fernandes, who I think is an excellent pick for game week 3. You could definitely pick him up if you wanted to. However, after that, the fixtures are pretty bad. Man City and Chelsea there. Is he going to be a player you bring in and sell immediately? Is that what you want to do? Probably not. But despite Man United, you know, obviously drawing to Grimsby, losing on penalties in the midweek League Cup game, I still think Bruno is a good pick, at least for game week 3. But he's not going to instill the same amount of confidence as maybe he would have done previously. But pretty good numbers here. I think a lot of that is down to penalties, in fairness, or his 1 penalty, but still plenty of key passes, plenty of non-penalty shots here as well. So actually not looking too bad for the underlying numbers, and obviously really good for defensive contributions here as well. The best of any player on this list today. We've got Ndoye here, a little bit risky because obviously he is coming into the Premier League fairly new. He's got 2 attacking returns, but he's done so with pretty weak underlying numbers. So just 1 shot taken so far this season, just 2 key passes in 2 games. Not particularly thrilling, really, but West Ham is the next fixture. Burnley and Sunderland in 5 and 6 look pretty good as well. And players like Bruno and Ndoye maybe work if you are free hitting in game week 4, considering both of these players have pretty weak fixtures in game week 4, particularly Ndoye away against Arsenal. Would not expect anything from him in that game, so be aware. Grealish, a little bit of a hipster move here, but he is looking pretty good creatively, and hopefully he can get back to his best playing for this Everton side. Wolves is the fixture, which is a very nice fixture this week, and there's some okay fixtures after that as well. Maybe Liverpool away in game week 5 is the one questionable one, but at the same time, you know, big derby match, we'll have to see what happens there. And then we've got a couple of risky picks here, which maybe I personally would look to avoid, but maybe you want to go there, that's totally fine. We'll give you the information anyway. So Gakpo has been overperforming quite significantly, probably one of the bigger overperformers in the Premier League so far. He's managed to get 1 goal and 2 assists from, so 3 attacking returns from about 0.75 expected attacking returns, which is, you know, like I say, a huge overperformance, which is usually not sustainable. The fixture next is against Arsenal as well, so maybe it's not the best time to pick up Gakpo. And also, you do feel that Gakpo is maybe a player that could potentially miss out if were Liverpool to sign Isak. And we've got Brennan Johnson here as well, with Simmons signing for Spurs. A lot of Spurs fans saying that maybe Johnson is a player who could potentially miss out in some games and will make him much more of a rotation risk. So, you know, when you have Kudus right there for cheaper, maybe you're not going to get as much goal threat, but you're going to get a secure long-term player. Maybe Kudus is now the player to go for ahead of Johnson because of that Simmons signing and the rotation risk that Johnson will now have. And we've got Eze, a difficult game away against Liverpool, and I'm not totally convinced he's going to start in this game as an Arsenal fan either. So I think he's super risky to go for. And given the fixtures after that are not particularly good for him, I think you can definitely wait a little while before going in on Eberechi Eze, see how he fits into the Arsenal team, get these difficult fixtures out of the way, and then we'll go in on him and see how he does then. But those are the Palmer replacements. I would definitely say if you don't have any bench cover, it might even be worth taking a -4 in order to remove Palmer from your team. And if you kind of maybe want to make multiple transfers, you know, obviously you're going to be downgrading Palmer because there's not really any players around Palmer's price or even slightly below Palmer's price that seem to be worth going for. I think Bruno Fernandes is maybe the closest player to Palmer's price that we'll be looking at as a potential replacement. So you are going to free up some money, and that's definitely going to be useful. Say you've got, you know, a Strand Larsen or a Fulkrug, or, you know, maybe a really cheap forward on your bench, or maybe a cheap midfielder that you're not happy to start in game week 3 and you need that cover, you need that extra player. Spending 2 free transfers, I think, is absolutely fine if you think you are going to struggle to field 11 players that you're happy with in game week 3, basically. So 2 transfers, absolutely fine. Hits, I think, are okay as well if you have no bench cover whatsoever. And these are kind of the scenarios where you might make multiple transfers here. So there you go. There's your Palmer replacements. I hope that's helpful for you guys. But if you have any other questions with regards to replacing Palmer, how to do it, you know, what other players you might bring into your team, you know, can you do Fulkrug to Wood or Joao Pedro, these kind of other options, let me know in the comments if you have any other questions about that. I'll do my best to help you. So I have a wildcard draft for you today, guys. If you are planning on a wildcard in game week 3, I think this is how I would line up, something like this. So we've gone for Raya in goal. I think long-term here is going to be a nice goalkeeper to have. Remember, if you are wildcarding, your goalkeeper probably needs to be a long-term player rather than a short-term player. You probably don't want to be spending transfers in the future on this particular position. And I think Raya offers some good value for money going into the Arsenal defense. In terms of defense, Cucurella, Williams, and Livramento would probably be the players I would go for here, getting that nice spread of price points, I suppose. In midfield, we've gone pretty cheap generally here. So we've got Semenyo, Kudus, Sarr, and Reinders. So yeah, just players with good fixtures coming up, basically. Very good value for money, each of these guys. We've mentioned a lot of these players already in the previous slide, talking about Palmer replacements. And I think the front 3 pretty much picks itself. Haaland, Joao Pedro, and Chris Wood here. Really, really sensible, straightforward forward 3. And this is where maybe things get controversial. So first of all, Dubravka on the bench. Fine for a 4 million goalkeeper. You're just going to leave him on the bench anyway. We've got Van der Ven, probably the best 4.5 million defender. Goodmanson is, in my opinion, the best 4 million defender. But Cole Palmer is in this wildcard team. And I think if you are wildcarding, you can create a situation where you've got plenty of bench cover in case Palmer is unavailable, even for game week 4. And I think if in the longer term, it's going to be pretty difficult if your squad is in a structure whereby you don't have any other, even slightly premium players other than Haaland. So it's going to be really, really difficult there. You could mess up your structure if you only have Haaland and then a bunch of 6.5, 7 million players. It's not very flexible at all. So for that reason, I think I would still include Palmer even in a wildcard team and leave him on the bench. But that's just my personal opinion. Obviously, if you guys disagree, you can downgrade Palmer. There's plenty of other midfielders we've already spoken about that you could potentially bring in there. And, you know, maybe you can find some upgrades elsewhere, particularly if you're looking to bench boost soon. You might want to downgrade Palmer, upgrade maybe Van der Ven, Goodmanson, maybe even Dubravka there. So there's plenty of options there. This is just the wildcard team that I think I would prefer. The team cost is 100.1 million, so maybe slightly over budget. You could maybe downgrade Reinders to someone. We mentioned Palmer as a downgrade, but I actually think Palmer could drop to 10.4 million by the deadline. So actually you could sell Palmer before your wildcard is finished, and then bring him back in after the price drop, and you're actually going to make yourself a little bit of money back, I suppose, and then this team would cost 100 million. So maybe that could work for you guys. In terms of a free hit, we've got Sells in goal. I think the look of this fixture, Nottingham Forest versus West Ham, looks really good for a clean sheet here. We've got Pedro Porro, Cucurella, and Milenkovic as our 3 defenders here, all offering a little bit of attacking threat as well as really nice high clean sheet odds. We have got Bruno Fernandes in this midfield here. I think if you are on a free hit, it is probably worth going for 1 or 2 Manchester United players, but for the longer term, maybe not so much. Dango against Sunderland looks good. Semenyo is here as well as is Harvey Barnes. The front three is the same as the wildcard team. Haaland, Joao Pedro, Wood looks pretty nice. And I've just got some other backup players on the bench here, as I had a little bit of budget remaining when building this free hit team. We've got Dubravka, Reinders, De Ligt, and a Tosin. And this team is actually 94% team rating on Fantasy Football Hub, which is pretty nice. Only costs 99.5 million, so maybe you could tweak it a little bit if you want to spend the whole budget, but I kind of like it the way it is, to be totally honest. And guys, I need to make sure I read this out right, because I can't even believe this deal is happening, but Fantasy Football Hub are offering us a new deal right now. If you're not a Fantasy Football Hub subscriber, you're interested in all of the tools we've mentioned and showcased over the last couple of weeks, they are running a deal where you will get your money back if you don't get a green arrow in Game Week 3. They are so confident that if you subscribe to Hub, that you will get a green arrow, that they will literally give you your money back, your subscription money back, if you don't get a green arrow in Game Week 3. So kind of seems like a no-brainer. If you are not subscribed already, you either get a green arrow or you get your money back. So particularly if you're like #1 in the world, you're pretty much guaranteed to get your money back as well. So if first in the world in FPL is watching this video right now, yeah, definitely worth going in on this deal. All you have to do is use the link in the description for this to claim this deal, and you need to submit your email and team ID. And if you get a red arrow, then all you need to do is email the support line with the subject line Game Week 3 offer, and you can claim a full refund immediately. Super simple, super straightforward stuff. But to be honest, guys, if you haven't used Hub's tools yet, as soon as you get on them, you're not going to want to lose them. They are so useful. There's so much that they offer right now, guys. So yeah, go check them out. Get this deal using the link in the description. Crazy. And finally, let's talk about captains. And for me, it's pretty obvious. There is a #1, and that is Haaland. And if I had Erling Haaland in my FPL team right now, he would be my captain, no doubt about it. I think he really is the standout captain pick for Game Week 3. However, if you don't have Haaland, I would maybe consider the next three on this list roughly equal, and that is Chris Wood, Joao Pedro, and Bruno Fernandes. I think each of these players all have their merits. I would be happy to go for pretty much any of these three if I didn't have Haaland, but I'm sure you guys are going to have your preferences. I know a lot of people are very anti Bruno Fernandes. Thankfully, Wood, Joao Pedro offer us very nice alternatives there as well if you fancy going for one of the forwards in a pretty favourable fixture. And if not, you can always use the backup of Salah. That is what Salah is in your squad for, to be captainable even in the most difficult games against the likes of Arsenal. So a nice backup option there if you are not confident in the other forwards for your captain for Game Week 3. So that is my preference order. Whichever one you have in your squad that is the top of this list or towards the top of this list, that is the player I would captain, and hopefully that is very useful. But guys, make sure you drop a like, subscribe, use this crazy Game Week 3 offer that Fantasy Football Hub are offering right now. You get your money back if you don't get a green arrow in Game Week 3. Crazy stuff. Don't miss out on that one. Link in the description. We're going to be back for a stream tomorrow morning. Hope to see you there. But if you want to check out any more Game Week 3 videos, you can do so right here. Here's one that YouTube thinks you'll really like. Go watch it. See you later, mates. Bye-bye.